haircut and everything just goes nuts. All right, so that says that it's initializing. We'll try to wait for it to actually kick into live, and then we'll actually get this show on the road. What do you guys think and ladies think about that? It's taken a long time to initialize this broadcast. There it is. What's up, America, and everybody watching around the world? You are seated with BC, the Brain Supreme, here in the living room. Just doing some hanging out tonight. Kind of had some inspiration for a conversation I wanted to have with everybody here live on YouTube with this Winning on YouTube series that we've had going on for a while. Fortunately, I'm in much better shape than I was the other night when we streamed and my sinus infection got the better of me to where I was in pain by the time we got to the end of the show there. But I'm actually, and I'll probably repeat a couple of these things throughout the course of the stream as we're waiting for people to show up. I'm actually going to refresh the page here. I'm watching myself on YouTube, if that makes any sense, while I'm talking to y'all. But it also allows me to keep an eye on how many people are here. Hey, I'm a Dork is here. What's up, man? The Banana Dork is in the building. How's your channel going, buddy? Is it going okay? You making the videos that you like to make? Everything going okay? So a couple of administrative notes. I will repeat this over the course of the show, just to make sure everybody is tracking. Two things I want you to do when you show up to the show. First is, just like the Banana Dork did here, leave me a comment. It can just say hi, or you can say anything that you like to say. Comment on my new haircut here. Went back to my old school days. Got rid of the hippie afro that I was rocking for a while there. Leave me a comment, but also share it on social media. So leave me a comment because I like to know who's here, who I'm addressing. We got Crojack in the building. What's up, my friend? Thanks, bro. I am indeed feeling better. My voice probably doesn't show it quite as much as my face and my nose do, but I am indeed feeling better. Thank you. So I asked folks to leave a comment, one, so that I know who's here. Like, I want to actually interact with the people who are watching these shows, and I'd like to interact with you by name to the degree that we can help it. For my more introverted and shy folks, don't worry, you only have to say hi once. But the other thing, while you're here, be sure to share the stream on whatever your preferred social media platform is. That gives us an opportunity, because when you do that, it actually sends a signal to YouTube that says, hey, 1 billion people just shared this video. It's probably important. And that gives us the opportunity to spread our message of impacting lives in a positive way and building a stronger gaming community, which is really the whole crux of why I do these shows, why I do the other shows that I do, the static knowledge session videos, which are really just chopped up versions of these live shows. Sometimes I toss in some other stuff that I'm working on that I don't cover here on the live shows. And then some of the gameplay stuff we do, with the idea of friends hanging out together and spreading good ideas such that we can have that positive impact on the gaming community. When I got started on YouTube, it was kind of the beginning of what I felt was the darkest hour of where the gaming community was headed, just in terms of the cynicism and the negativity. And I've made videos talking about how, it's our prosperity that I believe has led to a lot of our cynicism. Like, we have it so good that we forget to be grateful and appreciate what we have. We begin to complain about things that don't matter. Many of you have heard me share my stories from life, but also from combat. So that gives me a unique perspective, I think, on life, and obviously on YouTube and gaming, but really on life in general. And these shows are really about life in general. Hey, Kazrico's here. What's up, my friend? Thanks for coming out. It's a unique perspective that I bring really to life in general, just trying to help people realize that the fact that we all woke up today breathing, and hopefully if you're watching this on YouTube, you're not homeless, that those are two huge wins compared to what a lot of the rest of the world is seeing. And I wanted to bring that attitude to the gaming community because, frankly, without sounding condescending or negative myself, what I was observing with the vocal minority, by the way, of gaming, not necessarily the whole of the community, but what I was observing from the folks who are most vocal was, I've heard the word entitlement thrown around, but what I was really seeing was people who were spoiled. Like they just didn't realize how good they had it when, you know, in their life circumstances. You know, one time, several years ago, I was heading to the gym. This is back when I was still bodybuilding. Hey, David Diaz, good to see you. So yeah, reminder for folks who are just tuning in. 2 things I want you to do is leave a comment so that I can see you, shout you out. That helps you out if you're a creator. But it also lets me know who's here so that I can address everybody by name. A lot of times I will incorporate. Cosrico says not homeless yet and hopefully not ever. I also like to incorporate you all into the discussion. You know, there's things that I can, if I know who's here, there's things I know about your channel and about your life that I can incorporate, you know, into the discussion about positivity. So definitely leave me a comment. Let me know who's here. And then also share this on your preferred social media platform so that it signals to YouTube that, hey, something's going on that people should be checking out. It lets your friends know that it's happening, which is cool, but it also lets YouTube know to show it to more people so that we can spread this message to more people. And so tonight, yeah, the topic of tonight was this idea that every idea or every dream is crazy until it works. And that's what I really want to focus on tonight with the discussion, is that a lot of you have what you probably consider to be crazy ideas for what you want to do on YouTube, or maybe just in life in general. A lot of these conversations just aren't focused on YouTube, but in life in general, you may have a dream or an idea that you think is crazy, but when you really think about it, everything that's ever been hyper successful in the world was a crazy idea at one point. You know, the earth is round was a crazy idea to some people. I argue that if you dig into the depths of history, that there were people besides these, you know, overly wealthy Europeans that already knew the earth was round, but that's for a separate discussion. But the idea was at least strange to them. This idea that the earth is round is crazy. You know, the idea that YouTube could ever compete with television. I'm sure back in 2005, 2006, nobody ever believed that these crazy people making vlogs and silly, you know, YouTube videos would ever rival television ratings. But here we sit just a little over 10 years later, and it's already doing that, you know. So that's really the topic of discussion for tonight. But I'm also just sharing some experiences and anecdotes and telling a little bit of my backstory too. It's something I don't really get into a whole lot because I like to stay focused on the things that I think will help folks. But for you to understand why I'm here and why I do what I do, just in the game space, it was when I showed up. What you may not know about my story is I was a gamer all through my childhood. Like, I don't remember not playing video games. That's how long I've been playing them. Uh-oh, we got a comment here from Cosrico, which says, it was only the uneducated underclass of superstitious sailors that thought it was flat at that point. Yeah, I mean, it's... there were people, I think even centuries, that I've heard tell that there were ancient, long before that time, like African seafarers that had already seen the round earth by the time Columbus and his cohorts were trying to make that pitch. And I imagine if there were African, there probably also were Asian seafarers that had figured that out. But anyway, I don't have the historical proof of that, as I've not researched it. I just heard somebody say it that I think is reputable, as a, you know, historian and a music historian. Oh, Mellow Gamer says, yo, what's up? What's up, Mellow Gamer? Like I said, everyone, as you come in, definitely leave me a comment. Definitely share this, like it, but also share it on your social media platform of choice. So, a little bit of my backstory, you know, to tie in this, every idea is crazy until it works. I've been playing video games since I can remember. Like, I don't remember a point in my life where some type of video game wasn't a part of it. Like, all of my early childhood memories that I think go back to about 4 years old, maybe 3, and it involved some type of device that was letting me play a game. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's always been a part of my life. Let's see. Kaz says, I believe Greek scientists had proved it as well in BC. Yeah, so there you go. You know, I've been playing video games for so long, and I remember getting into kind of the crux of my childhood, like the golden years, if you will, when I was between probably the ages of 6 and 10, and that was where I was introduced both to the Commodore 64 and then the Nintendo Entertainment System. In my story, I came across the Nintendo Entertainment System late in the game. Like all my friends, by the time I started playing Nintendo Entertainment System, I was in middle school. And all of my friends had one since they were, however old they were as kids. Well, I didn't. I didn't get an NES until middle school. And I just remember thinking it was the most awesome thing on the planet. Let's see, Mellow Gamer says, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Don't get me started on Columbus. Yeah, I won't. I usually have some type of, anytime I get on that discussion, I usually have some jokes about some of the ways our history is recounted. But so I get an NES in middle school, and it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened. So by this time, all of my friends have moved on. Like they're talking about girls and parties and dances, and I'm literally talking about Super Mario Brothers and Double Dragon. And that was my life for a long time. And then I got a Super Nintendo, a couple years after that. And then, the Nintendo 64 came out, and the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. And it came out in a time of my life where I was pursuing other dreams. Like that was when I was playing football. I had the idea that maybe I'd like to become a professional football player, and I've told that part of my story where it is documented fact that I was not good enough to play in the NFL. But I still had the dream, like I said in the topic of tonight's discussion, every dream is crazy until it works. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, the PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo 64 come out during a time where I'm pursuing that, and I'm not as serious about gaming, but I still am a gamer. But I get introduced to games that don't really suit me at all. Like Metal Gear Solid comes out, and so as a person who grew up where the original Metal Gear on the NES was probably my second favorite game that I've ever played, Metal Gear Solid didn't have that same flavor. It wasn't as pick up and play. It was way more expository with dialogue and these arduously long cutscenes, which I just wasn't ready for. Like I wasn't ready to play video games that were interactive movies because I grew up playing things that were much more simple. Go here, get the key card, get the rocket launcher, shoot Arnold in the face, both of the Arnolds, and then go on to the next thing. Go fight Howard Duck, who has the crazy boomerang, but you use the remote control rockets to hit him, and then you go fight Big Boss, you escape. And I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the original Metal Gear for anybody, but you've had literally 20 years to play it, so you shouldn't be mad at me. Or 30 years at this point almost. And so that's what I grew up with when I got introduced to, I'm going to watch a movie. Like I'm playing the game, and it's like, put the controller down and watch. It didn't really add up to me. And like the Nintendo 64 wasn't quite that way, but the games that were coming out, like I grew up with 2D Mario, and Super Mario Brothers 2 is my favorite Mario of all time, followed by Super Mario World. And the Mario 64 worked, but then I remember playing Sunshine and being like, why am I doing any of this? So to make a long story short, that hit me at a time where video games didn't make sense to me as much as they used to. And so the internet is getting huge at this point, and it's becoming a legitimate space. Like I had been on, what was the internet as a kid, which was very, basic compared to what we have now, and going on like message forums to figure out what the Street Fighter boss code was that never existed. It was a bad April Fool's joke. But, I remember having those experiences, but then being put off by the PlayStation 1, and then PlayStation 2 came out, and it was more of the same. Like it was these games that were made to be movies instead of just playing a game to the completion with maybe a short dialogue box here and there. And granted, I had played older RPGs that were more dialogue heavy, so it's not like I wasn't, like it was completely off-putting, but I didn't want every game I played to be a Hollywood movie. And that's not to say that every game that came out then was, but a lot of the games I was playing were focused more on the theatrical than just the fun factor of making a system that's fun to play. So I kind of, in PlayStation 2 days, I walked away from gaming. Like, I was just like, at this point, I'm in the army, so I'm rarely home to ever play the PlayStation 2 I had bought a couple years prior to that. And, you know, video games just weren't really a part of my life. But when I got out of the army, video games became they were therapy for me, because, you know, I was dealing with the things I'd seen in combat, and, you know, things that I, you know, wouldn't wish on anybody to see. Some things that I don't talk about in the public space, because I don't want people to have the imagery of some of the stuff we saw, and I want to be respectful to, you know, some of the people who are no longer on Earth. I don't want to, you know, disgrace their existence by talking about some of the things that I've seen. And some of that was hard to deal with, and video games became this they were therapeutic, but at the same time they were extremely frustrating, because they weren't helping me relive the joys of my childhood playing games that were much more simple. So a lot of the soapboxes you guys hear me get on really started in the PlayStation 1 generation and were solidified in the PlayStation 2 generation. And it wasn't until the Xbox 360 came out that I then got reintroduced to games that were actually more my speed and more just about playing the game and not necessarily having to sit through cutscenes. And it's not to say the cutscenes are all bad. You know, The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's extremely narrative heavy. But the narrative in that game is actually very good, so it's not boring like a lot of other games that focus on that are for me. Thank you for everybody that's just tuned in. Remember, leave me a comment so that I know who's here, so that I can shout you out and share on your social media platform of choice. So we're getting to the topic of every idea is crazy. Hey, David Diaz says an escape. Yes, very much an escape. The topic of tonight's hangout is this idea that every idea is crazy until it works, which to me is really just saying that there are really no crazy ideas, just crazy ideas that people don't push all the way through to fruition. So I'm using video games as a recovery or an escape mechanism to deal with a lot of the things that I had seen, things that I wanted to forget and didn't really want to deal with emotionally. And, you know, I was playing games. So at that time, I'm playing games like Final Fantasy X, which, you know, is years old at that point, but I had never finished it prior to having gone to combat. So I came back and played it. And I did finish it, but I remember being very frustrated, enjoying the ending, enjoying what the story was, but being very frustrated with the play of the game. And that was kind of the second coming of maybe Final Fantasy games just don't work for me. Banana Dork says, do you use the open broadcast software to game? Yeah, sometimes I do. And so Final Fantasy VII Final Fantasy VI was the first game where I was like, okay, maybe Final Fantasy games really aren't my speed, because I loved Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo, which we all know was really Final Fantasy IV. But when I played Final Fantasy III on Super Nintendo as a kid, which was Final Fantasy VI, I didn't really like it. Like, it was long, it was very, you know, narrative heavy. I didn't like a lot of the dynamics that make Final Fantasy Final Fantasy. Then 7 made it worse. And then 10, you know, took even the parts that were really good about 7, which for me were the exploration and the openness, and just made it basically a corridor running game. And so I was just like, maybe video games aren't really my thing. But the Xbox 360 comes out. I get to play Oblivion, which, you know, today I complain about, but back then was the best thing going. And then games like Crackdown came out, which were, so there are still games that focus just on play and me having a good time and playing these games. And I'm like, great. Hopefully more games like this will come out. And it did. It did have some more narrative heavy games, like Tales of Vesperia is one of my favorites, but Two Worlds comes out, and it basically is my favorite Xbox 360 game of all time, my favorite RPG of all time, and one of my favorite games of all time, maybe the most favorite game. Not a perfect game, definitely flawed, definitely has its issues, I acknowledge that, but a game that suits me. But when I came back into gaming, which is the point of this, into like the Xbox 360 generation, I walked into a community, like I started getting involved in the community. Naturally, Jalen, hey, what's up? Welcome. I walked into a community that was just full of anger, and like I didn't remember any of that from my childhood. Like I remember us teasing each other back in middle school when we were playing, you know, the Nintendo fanboys versus the Sega fanboys or whatever. I remember that conversation, but it was never like I'm going to get in a fight after school because somebody loves Sega or somebody loves Nintendo. And it was playful and it was fun, but it was really a group of people who all loved video games. And then you'd inevitably go to a friend's house that had the Sega Genesis. You'd play it, or the Sega Master System. I remember playing at friends' houses. Like, this is actually kind of cool. I like Phantasy Star, and I like the way Sega did Double Dragon. It's kind of cool. So, to wake up, it's almost like I woke up from this dream of, or like almost like you woke up from a gaming coma where you were just out of it for 5, 6, 7 years. And I walked into, like, I remember going to websites and seeing everybody screaming at each other. Like, not that I hadn't been on the internet and seen people screaming at each other, but it was gamers doing it. And it was, you're an idiot because of this, or you're a D-bag because, I'm like, wait a minute, what? We play video games. And we're, like, the whole point of video games is to have a good time. What are we screaming at each other over? So over the years, I played games. I started reviewing games. I got involved with some of the, journalists out there. Let's see. We got Zena who says, "Hi, BC. Over the past week, I've watched a bunch of your content. I'm new to your channel, mostly winning on YouTube. Excellent. It's very informative, helpful, and actually fun to watch. Good to be here live now. I'm very glad to have you, Zeno." And Com Soze says, "Crackdown was the game. Was it? That was my joint, man. That could be my second favorite Xbox 360 game. It still holds up to this day, too. I was going to do a live stream of it. A couple weeks ago, I sat down to play it, and I was like, I don't know if I can turn this into a series just because it hasn't quite aged the way I would like it to. But it's still a pretty solid game. But so imagine you wake up from this video game coma when you went to sleep, everyone was still kind of getting along. And I get that during the PlayStation 1 era, people were probably still screaming at each other. I'm just saying I wasn't on the internet talking about video games during that era, the way I was during the Super Nintendo and Genesis era when I was, in my kind of heyday playing games in my childhood. And so I woke up and, like, everybody's angry. So I started reviewing games from this perspective that we don't really need to yell at each other because we have different opinions. I wanted to review games from kind of like an innocent bystander where I have my opinion and I'll tell you what I like and don't like. But at the same time, I'll tell people that, hey, yeah, I hated this game, but you may still like it if you like these types of dynamics in your games. To try to steer the conversation away from people getting into these tribes of hatred and just saying, look, this person hates Two Worlds. Like if you took Pro Jared and I, who are the most polarly opposite reviewers for Two Worlds, like, he hated it, I loved it, but there's no reason for he and I, and we don't, I seriously doubt he even knows who I am, but he and I don't argue over it. I've seen his video. I thought it was well done. I didn't necessarily agree with all the points, but I could totally understand how someone came to that conclusion. Like, for me, it was obvious that he was playing the game with the hopes that there was going to be some narrative goodness in there. And he was disappointed, as you could tell by the first 3 minutes of his video, are really focused on the story. For a person like me that didn't grow up with video games that had big stories, I didn't care. I was just happy to be in the world and killing stuff and leveling up to my heart's content. And so, for me, it was the perfect game. But I can see where he's coming from. And in my review, I can say, look, here's the issues you've heard about are true. The game is flawed. It's dang near broken on Xbox 360. But if you're like me, you're still going to love it. Let's see. Mibis says, someone gained 1,500 subs overnight. Right on, dude. I wish that was me. But thank you. But yeah, or maybe Mibes is talking to someone else that's here. But the point being, we can have both opinions without, like, the fact that Two Worlds exists, whether you like it or you love it, it's a marvel of modern technology that we should be happy we have things. Like, as a person who, basically studied computer programming, I can tell you how hard it is to make a program that makes your toaster lights come on, let alone a program that makes a game allow you to interact with it. So maybe my perspective is unique in that I understand how hard it is to make what people consider a good game. But it's like, what are we screaming about? Why are we hating each other? And why are we allowing our cognitive dissonance and our cognitive biases and our insecurities to come to the forefront? And again, the observation was obviously the vocal minority of gamers, but it was like, yo, video games used to be about fun, not about tribes who all try to have beef and argue and fight with one another. So that was when I infused. I was like, I'm going to start. I was writing reviews at the time, and I'd seen Classic Game Room with Mark Bussler, and then Classic Game Room Undertow with Derek Buck. Rest in peace. Not Derek, he's still alive, but the show is dead, unfortunately, because I really got a lot out of that. And I was like, oh, there are people on the internet having fun and not screaming at one another. This is great. So I thought I could do that too. I could bring something to the table. Hey, Robert Hughes, how are you, friend? I could bring something to the table that, you know, we could have a discussion about and still remember that the reason why we're here is to have fun, not to argue with other people about our own insecurities. Finally made it to the stream, though only for a little while. What's up, Phoenix Gaming? How you doing? So yeah, I'm taking advantage of the fact that there's a snow day for my kids tomorrow, so they're up playing Zelda so I can record in my actual house, not in my office. But yeah, so, and I say all that backstory to say, you know, that was the story of Alloy 7. It was like, I want to bring this positivity to the games community because I want us to be stronger. And, you know, as a person who has led men in battle, the one thing you know is if there is dissension amongst your people, you cannot fight together and survive and win. And if we want the gaming community to be an awesome thing and to be respected by the media instead of kind of crapped on by people like Jimmy Kimmel, even though I argue that they did that for ratings and it was kind of staged and corny. If we want to be a respected member of the greater world that is social media and the internet, we've got to start behaving our age. Hey, Brain Juice is here. Just checking in for a couple minutes. Good to see you, dude. Nice name change, by the way. It creeped me out. I was like, is this Brain Juice? No one else has this logo. But, you know, I was like, the gaming community, we've got to start acting our age, which I think the last time I checked, the average age of gamers is 35 years old. Maybe it's 37. It's older than I thought. And so it's not to say that I'm not saying that the community as a whole is immature. I'm just saying that a very small minority of us are making it look that way. So I wanted to get everybody back focused on the positive nature of what makes what we do so great, because it's fun. Like, I think even developers have lost sight of the fact that video games' job is to be fun. Like, and maybe it's just my definition of fun is different. I have to imagine that the developers who are making games now are probably, they grew up during the PlayStation 1 era, right? Not all of them. Obviously, there's older people there's people in their 40s and 50s. So there's obviously people older than us making games, but it's like there's younger people too. And, you know, they grew up with PlayStation 1. So they grew up with these narrative expository games that I didn't. So what I look for in a game sometimes is lost because the inspiration of developers has been very much making games more complex. Whereas I like games to have depth, you know, like a leveling tree that gives me a lot of options to level up is depth. But what games usually give us is complexity, a leveling tree with limited XP that forces you to sit there for an hour and try to pigeonhole your character into a fighter that can actually survive. Like, there's a lot of, you could argue that that's good tactics and it makes you think strategically, which is true, but I'd rather just level up everything I like and play the game the way I want to have a little bit more freedom, you know. And complexity in games, like even Minecraft has a lot of complexity when you start thinking about, you know, we talked about this on our live stream with Kazrico and company the other night, where even Minecraft has a level of complexity when you start talking about building the more uh, the more complicated structures that require a lot of engineering. Those are things that if I were to design a game that allowed me to build those things, then I would make it like a level up thing where if I'm playing and I say I get good enough at building a house and I'm leveling up while I'm building the house, then eventually I get a button that says, here, build a smelter with the click of a button. But more engineer-minded types like my brother would prefer the Legos approach, where it's I want to learn all of the details of how to build this thing. So, but more and more games are doing that. Like it seems there's less and less games that allow me to have the simple pleasure that I enjoy, and it's more focused on the people who want the level of complexity, or if it's not complexity, then it's very narrative heavy. Like it's hard for me to find a Two Worlds type game where it's just everything I like all in one bundle, because there's so many different types of gamers and diversity. And like Kazrico said right there, of course, different people have a different definition of fun. I like football, American football. I couldn't care less about playing soccer or what the rest of the world calls football. Doesn't mean soccer's not fun. It just means it doesn't really suit my play style. I like the more aggressive approach of football. It's just kind of how I'm wired. Let's see. Tunes Wasted says, yo, what's up, Tunes Wasted? Galactic Gaming is here. Awesome. Yeah, make sure you guys are liking. Make sure you're also sharing on your social media platform of choice. And make sure, I notice a lot more people have showed up, that you're leaving me a comment when you do show up so that I can shout you out. And so that, not just so I can shout you out, but so I know who's here. So when I'm talking, a lot of times I'll use examples, with what I know about your channels and whatnot. Let's see. We've got Soze says, I don't think I'll ever understand how to play Minecraft. Yeah, I've had a friend of mine named Wells Knight. He's a really good Minecrafter, has an awesome channel. He actually did a series with me where he taught me how to play Minecraft, but you can actually see it as the series is going. He's getting to, and he keeps it pretty simple for me because his series was titled, Minecraft for Dummies, which was true. I was a Minecraft dummy. But in him taking me through that, I started to realize, wow, I really like creative mode. Like survival mode in Minecraft. Like I like the survival parts, like the fighting monsters and exploring dungeons, but the actual learning recipes and stuff, it's not that I don't have the aptitude or the intelligence, although some may argue that that is the case. It's more I don't really have the desire to learn that stuff. So Brain Juice just said a comment that went off screen before I saw it. Let me see if I can pull it up on my tablet. He said, I've been playing Space Engineers recently. It's amazing how you grow from basically nothing, and then you have tons of resources and equipment that can do things faster. Share it on News Blur. Thanks, Kaz. Aaron Hope, let me make sure I say his name right. Hopener says, just stopping by for a bit from Crojack, but it's nice to hear your views on this. Awesome. Thank you for coming out. Senelin, what's up? Long time. No C. Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to the show. So, Brain Juice, I'm not going to get used to not calling you Brain Juice, bro. Says, I have a lot more fun in Space Engineers. I've seen Space Engineers, and I keep passing up on it every time it's on sale. Maybe I need to give it a shot. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Minecraft and what it does. I'm glad I have a team of people to play with that know how to do all the complicated stuff, so I can just focus on building things and killing monsters. That's, one of the things I'll say, going back to the YouTube and building your brand and building your presence on YouTube discussion is team up with other people. I really do recommend, like, even if you don't bring somebody full-time onto your channel like I've done with a couple of folks, bring people into what you're doing because they will add layers that you don't have. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a complexity and detail person. Like, I'm great at ideas. I'm not necessarily great at following an idea all the way down the rabbit hole to its completion. So I have people around me in my life, not just on YouTube, that help fill that void. Like, for example, if I do web development for a client, I always have a developer on my squad who is a detail-oriented, no-nonsense coder, because I'm the idea and the architect guy. Like, I can code, but it's not my passion, and honestly, it's tedious for me. So, I need to be able to read the code to understand what's going on, but I don't have to be the one who is daily writing out the code. I'm the one interfacing with clients, or I'm the one coming up with the architecture based on the vision of what the client says they want. Like, that's what I'm good at. I'm good at being the proverbial architect versus the actual engineer that's down there putting the wires together and making things work. Let's see. He says I could still call him Brain Juice. Phoenix Gamer says, time for bed. Got to be up in the next 6 hours for work. Good night. Excellent. Get some rest. Mives, tell me how to pronounce your name. I don't like saying people's names wrong. I see Mives or Mives. Like, write it in, phonetically so I can pronounce your name right. But you ask, do you enjoy any first-person shooter games online? Loved Battlefield 3 on Xbox 360. That was my joint. That was arguably my favorite shooter probably of all time, I'm thinking. Yeah. Besides, like, Duke Nukem 3D. That's probably my favorite. Let's see. Greetings from Sugarfoot. Don't forget to drop a like and share. There you go. Get him, Sugarfoot. It says B has massive bodybuilder arms, so his chokeholds are deadly. See, coming up with ideas is the easy bit. It's the execution that matters. Yeah, it is. But, and that's tied to the conversation for tonight, that there are no, every idea is crazy until it actually works, which is, going back to having a conversation with you all about your YouTube channels. I'm thinking that many of you may be somewhat disillusioned or discouraged. Let's see. It's my vase. Is it my vase, me vase? How do I actually say it, though? You just wrote it with a lot of I's. I don't know how to pronounce that. So Brain Juice says coming up with ideas is the easy bit. I wouldn't say that it's the easy bit. Yeah, brainstorming and coming up with an idea is easy, but coming up with the right idea that solves the problem is the hard part. So you always want to have both. You want to have people that are good at execution, because it's not just the execution that matters. It's actually, you got to have the knowledge, you got to have the strategy, and then you have to have the execution. And so I'm the strategy guy. And you have to have all three, and you don't want to skimp on any of them. But a lot of times people who are more action-oriented just want to focus on execution. But, let's say somebody asks you to, build a bridge. Well, if you don't have the right tools for bridge building to solve this problem, like if your idea is to help people get across this, this body of water, I'm going to build, something that doesn't actually get them across the body of water. So I wouldn't discount coming up with ideas, but it's the ability to come up with the right idea that actually solves the problem. So, when I'm talking about the proverbial architect position, it's the taking the vision that a client has and saying, like when I've done some YouTube consulting with like video games retailers, and like they have an idea for what they want to do, but they don't really know how. Like, they want to bring people into their store and share their goodness with everybody, right? But they need the idea, like, how do I convey how good my store is to other people? And that part's not as easy as you think, because a lot of times people think, well, it's easy, I'll just make a commercial and throw it up on YouTube. But if they don't know that throwing a commercial on YouTube is probably the worst thing that you can do if you're the one creating video for a channel. That's where the idea person who has the knowledge, remember, knowledge, strategy, and execution. So it's all three. But you're right. You do have to have people that can execute. But if you have people that can execute that have no imagination, that's you'll run into problems there as well. So Brain Juice says, anyways, got to go. See you. Always good to see you, Brain Juice. Thanks for coming out. Okay, so it's my vase. Okay, no, Aaron's trying to help me. Is it my vase? I'm going to go with me vase until me vase, or until they correct me. But if I'm saying your name wrong, understand that it's not. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to do the best I can. So, with that in mind, kind of that little backstory there, just to show you that my idea when I came to the YouTube space was probably a little bit crazy. And to some, it probably sounded pretentious, this idea that you're going to build a stronger gaming community. There were probably many that believed the gaming community was already strong enough and it didn't need my help. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. But I can tell you that the gaming, as a person who has led combatants into combat, one of the things you look for is cohesiveness with the people that you lead. And the gaming community lacks that very, very badly. There is a strong lack of cohesion. The gaming community is very tribal, extremely tribal. And that, of course, someone will argue, well, that's Earth. Like, everyone on the planet is tribal. Like, there's, hip-hop fans hang with hip-hop fans. And then even in there's tribes of what's real hip-hop versus commercial hip-hop versus indie and underground hip-hop versus, whatever the case may be. So I'm not saying that there won't be tribes, but at the end of the day, there are still people that ally themselves with hip-hop. And usually the majority of the people in that community can see the value across the board. You've got the commercial artists, yes, but they also help the brand called hip-hop get more visibility. Oh, we got Bulletproof Ballers here. What's up? So yeah, my idea coming and building a stronger gaming community of people who, get the focus back to why we're here, which is to have fun, not to be in these, and not even to tear down the tribes, because I think the tribes are a good thing. People who love Xbox should band together. There's strength there. People who love PlayStation should band together. There's strength there. People who love role-playing games should get together. You know what I mean? People who love first-person shooters should get together. But I wanted Alloy 7 to kind of be the ambassador that gets all of those people to focus on what's important. Instead of shooting bullets at each other, well, I'm an Xbox fan, or I'm a PlayStation fan, or I'm PC Master Race, say no. PC Master Race is amazing. PlayStation fanboys are awesome. Xbox fanboys are amazing as well. And what are our common traits? What are the things that, we all can agree that we love video games and we love playing them. We may want to play them on a different platform. We may want to play a different type of genre. But let's bring content out. And so I never expected Alloy 7 by itself to be able to do that. What I was hoping to do is what you're seeing here. Get other like-minded people together, kind of pour into their brain this idea that we need to be focused on what actually matters, which is what we really enjoy about our community, and sharing that with other people, and not saying that, well, I'm in this camp and screw everybody that's over here in this camp. No, I'm in this camp and I respect the people that are over there in this camp. Just like I said with the Pro Jared, where he and I completely disagreed on a review. I'm of the mindset that you should never, I've said this on a stream before, you should, hey, Carlo B, what's up? You should never basically argue with somebody's perspective until you understand their perspective well enough to argue it better than they can, right? So when I look at Pro Jared's review of Two Worlds and I see that he really, really hated the game, I can totally see, because I've played the game, I have finished the game 4 times, I've reviewed it, I've done a Let's Play series of it, I've reviewed it, I've also done some live streaming of it. And in the course of playing that game, I'm intimately familiar with what makes it great and what makes it terrible, or what can make it terrible to someone else, and what makes it great to me. So I could do Pro Jared's review also and say, here's what a lot of people are probably going to hate about this game. For example, fans of CRPGs are going to hate the fact that you can max level everything, whereas they want to build a very specific build and be methodical about how they pick the class of their character or characters. If they're playing a CRPG that's multiple people, they may be put off by the fact that you can literally level to no end. There's no level cap, and you can level up every single skill. Like, I was a fireball throwing, dual wielding, crazy mage swordsman, which some people would be put off by. Well, this kills replay value because I want to be able to play through different classes every time I play it, which is why a lot of people love Divinity, for example. And I can see that. Like, I'm in the camp that I love being able to level everything. I don't like being pigeonholed, but I can understand why somebody else would, right? So, and that's what we need to get to, is we need to get out of our bubbles, as you guys hear me talk about a lot of times, and get into the bubbles of the other people. Understand what makes them tick. Understand what makes them love what they love about their games. Because in doing so, inevitably, you're going to earn their respect for caring about them, but you're also going to learn to respect them and their culture and their beliefs and what they see as valuable. Let's see. Zeno says Xbox gamers can have a party together. PlayStation gamers can party together. PC gamers, etc. No need to turn those parties into a war. And it's true. And I'll reiterate that the people who are fighting the war, at least in my belief, in my observation, are a vocal minority. So more of my backstory is I've been running online communities since 2000, I want to say 1 or 2. I've been involved in either being the administrator for an online community, building my own online community, or moderating an online community. Like I used to be a moderator for Sony's PlayStation forums back in the day, back during the PS2 era. And I was a moderator there. And so I've seen firsthand that a lot of the people who are fighting and bickering are usually, they're a handful of the whole, but the problem is they are the loudest. Like the people who are getting along are usually inclined to hang out and talk when they see fit. Let's see, 10-08290 says, how is everybody? I've been busy and tired for a month. Well, if you've been busy and tired doing something that you love, I guess that's a good thing, hopefully. But anyway, that's what I was hoping to do. And what I was really hoping to do, it took me a little bit longer to do it than I had hoped when I got started, was to attract other like-minded people to doing this on YouTube. It was easier to bring people together on social media. But, what I'm proposing is something that a lot of people either, one, don't care about, or two, they don't want to hear it because they're in the vocal minority group that prefers to keep yelling at people and to keep, movements going that are, being more harmful to the gaming industry or the gaming community than they are really helpful, in that they're focusing us, again, on things that don't matter in the grand scheme. And when I say things that don't matter, understand what I'm talking about may specifically matter to an individual. But I mean, in the grand scheme of the universe, whether Xbox or PC is better, it doesn't really matter. Not when people are starving and dying every day. You know what I mean? So let's see. We've got Cam So Z. My crazy idea is to take my funny personality, bring it to YouTube, and pay my way through college with that YouTube money. There you go. So, and that's really what we're here to talk about tonight for you, those of you who are creators. Carlo B says, is that you in the thumbnail going beast mode, dude? Yes, that is me from my music days. That was from a live show that I did back in, I want to say that was back in 2007, maybe even 2006. I was doing a live show, and my wife actually took that picture. Like that's, it's actually my favorite picture of myself. And so, but yeah, so that's a seemingly crazy idea, but it won't be crazy if it works. That's what we're really here to talk about today. I get the impression that a lot of you have something cool and new or crazy that you want to try, but you may be somewhat disillusioned or discouraged from trying it because you're looking at YouTube and you're seeing, here is what's working for other people, and I'm scared to branch out and do my own thing because I'm afraid that it's not going to help me reach my goals as well as maybe copycatting what someone else is doing. And part of that concern is somewhat healthy. You don't want to make what you're doing so crazy that it's just impossible to connect with. But at the same time, like I said, every idea is crazy until it works. And so I imagine PewDiePie, and I use PewDiePie so much in my examples, I realize that, but I imagine PewDiePie's idea of what he did on YouTube was crazy back in 2006. Nobody thinks it's crazy now. Everybody's trying to copy it. Excuse me. And so, what is your crazy idea? Because, and I'm going through right now I'm getting, my recertification on YouTube. So you guys, a lot of you who have been here for my knowledge session and tips videos know that I'm YouTube certified. So I'm going back through all of the lessons to get certified or to get recertified. And what's interesting is the things that you think you know things, but a lot of times the reason why I repeat things over and over again is because we think we know them, but until they're operating in our lives, we really don't know them like we think we do. And in one of the classes, the person teaching specifically says, like, what is the cool, weird thing that because she starts talking about trends and why it's important on YouTube, especially as a new creator, to use trends in the videos that you create, which is true. It's one of the great ways to start to amass an audience is to talk about things or infuse things into your shows that are on a lot of people's minds, because it's easier to get discovered that way. One of the questions she asks during that is, but if you're into something really kind of off the wall weird, do you have to follow trends? And she's like, of course not. She's like, actually, one of the most powerful ways to grow your brand and your presence on YouTube is to be very focused on, you guys hear me talk about focus all the time, is to be very focused on a niche and really hone in on that, because the reason why that works for people that are able to pull it off is because the focus on that niche lets the people who are inclined to subscribe, know what they're going to get every single time you upload a video. They know what they're in for. And if it's something that they really, really like, they're going to subscribe and be very active on your channel and as a part of your community, because they know what to expect. Unlike a TV channel where, you tune in and you can see 17 different shows. I mean, the difference in TV is what show comes on when. But YouTube is on demand. So because of that, you want to be consistent so that people know what they're getting into. When I first started on YouTube, and the reason why I harp on focus is because my lack of focus really hurt my channel in the beginning, where I started very focused on reviews, but then I was like, oh, I have so many interests and ideas, and I, delusionally believe I'm good at a lot of things, which I'm not, I can do this and this and this and this, and then people have a hard time like connecting with, well, what is this dude actually doing? Like, I'm here for the retro show that he does, or I'm here for the indie show that he does, or I'm here just for his normal reviews, not his kind of retro and indie reviews, or I'm here for his Divinity 2 Let's Play. And so when I'm making all types of different content, some can argue it's great or it's terrible. That's fine. It's both, depending on who you are. It's hard for people to want to tie down, because if they're here just for Divinity stuff, well, when they subscribe and then the Divinity show ends, what do? If that person hasn't made a connection with me personally, then they're going to be inclined either to become an inactive subscriber or to just leave. Like, oh, well, it was good while it lasted, and then they're gone. Hey, Hickville Productions is here. Let's see, what is... Oh, yeah. Banana Dork, just so my moderators know, Banana Dork is actually someone I know personally. Banana Dork, cut the PewDiePie stuff, bro. Cut it out. I know you're trying to be funny, but I don't want my moderators. I actually know you in real life, and I don't want my moderators to send you away. So, moderators, take it easy. Let me talk to him first. I didn't notice he was still doing the PewDiePie stuff. So, yeah, stop yelling about PewDiePie, dude. Anyway, the idea that, consistency is important, but the main takeaway from her teaching was that, yeah, there is still room for something weird or new that you want to do. And there's a great, one of my coaches, one of my mentors in my life has taught me, one of his mentors used to say, and I love the story. It's really cool. Hopefully you guys will use this. He says, you can be a nudist, and like in terms of building a brand and doing something like in a business, you can be a nudist and you can be a Buddhist, but you can't be a nudist Buddhist. So what that means is, like, if you were a nudist and you went and told your friends, hey, I just became a nudist, I go to a lot of beaches and I'm nude, they'd be like, oh, it's okay, cool. No sweat, that's different, but we still love you, no problem. Or if you came up and just told everyone, hey, I just became a Buddhist, all your friends would be like, great. What are you learning? What are you taking away from it? But he's like, if you come up and say I'm a nudist Buddhist, your friends will be like, that's just weird, dude. Cut it out. So, you don't want your idea to be so crazy that no one can connect with it and feel a sense of belonging with what you're doing. Okay. But whatever your crazy, zany, weird, quirky ideas, I mean, who would have thought vlogs where people just talk to a camera would have been the jam? Who would have thought that 10 years ago? Who would have thought reality TV would catch on? Not knowing that there's, a lot of psychology behind why that works, and a lot of people who study psychology who make those shows work, because they, my wife watches a lot of them, because as a chef, she watches a lot of chef-based TV shows to get ideas and inspiration and stuff. So she's telling me this story from one of Gordon Ramsay's shows with the Kitchen Nightmares. And she's telling me the story as if this wasn't a staged event. And I said, do you realize this whole thing that you just rattled off was as if you were talking about a friend of yours who went through something real that wasn't staged? And she was like, yeah. I said, that's how good these shows are at making people connect with what's happening. Whether it's real or not, who cares? I mean, that's like the argument of pro wrestling. Nobody cares if it's real or fake. They care about the characters and being a part of what's going on there. And that's what you want to do with your audiences. Which is why, and as YouTube grows, and really kind of the point of me making tonight's, discussion, kind of the living room hangout, I want to be able to do more just hangout type videos where I'm not in my office with the bookshelf and all the stuff, where we're just hanging out and chit-chatting. Because I think that's more personal and it's more comfortable. Like, I'm not standing on my feet right now. But, the idea behind the show was to encourage you that you may have a weird idea that you're reluctant to do because you think it's going to be too crazy and it's not enough like what's working. Well, the fact of the matter is what's working is working for other people. And I'm not saying that you don't learn and emulate some of the working mechanics, but YouTube is going to continue to grow. Like right now, there's 1 billion viewers and essentially 1 million creators. There's more than that, but there's 1 million partners. Okay? So that number is only going to get bigger. It's only going to grow. There's only going to be more opportunity for you to get in and do something different, because as it grows, you're going to get a large percentage of people are going to try to copy what the popular people are doing. And what marketing history has shown time and time again is that simply copying what someone else is doing and trying to compete with them is not wise, because it doesn't work. Now, you can take an idea that someone else has done. I think I talked about this either in so we have a YouTube Gamers Academy where I do more one-on-one coaching with a smaller group. It's people that, it's a monthly subscription fee that people pay for direct access behind the scenes with me to actually walk them through a lot of these concepts in great detail. And I think it was on one of the recent videos I shot for that, where I talked about it's okay for you to get into the soft drink industry. It's a bad idea for you to make a new cola and try to compete with Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola owns the word cola in the minds of people. That's why Pepsi's never been able to compete with them directly. Like, Pepsi competes, but they probably have half the market share that Coca-Cola has, right? So that's what I mean. It's not that you can't get into the let's play business. It's you've got to get into the let's play business in a way that someone else isn't doing, if you want to achieve their level of success. Now, if you just want to kind of carve out a niche of people that's not really large, or is very specific around something that someone else is doing, but you really love it, that's not necessarily wrong. I'm not trying to give you black and white answers here, but I am saying that the more you can differentiate yourself. So you come out with a soft drink that's lime and lemon based versus cola based. Oh, now we're on to something. Will it compete with Coca-Cola? No, but you'll own the market of lime and lemon drinks, people who are into that. You know what I mean? Like, one of the areas I've never been able to understand why this has not been figured out yet. Why are there no soft drink makers or like a new player getting into the game with a healthy soda? Like, everybody's so let's eat and drink organic food right now. Like, why are we not doing that? I don't understand it. I don't understand why we haven't gotten to the point where, looks like my comments here are not keeping up. Let me make sure I'm not missing you guys talking. We got the French monkeys here. Hey, long time no see, my friend. Let's go through some of these comments here. Sugar says, I'm not a fair moderator. Let's see. 7-Up, Sprite, Sierra Mist. Yep. Found Ghetto B. What's up, Ranger J? So, with everybody focused on organic eating and food, like, why has nobody said, okay, here's a soda, but it's organic and it's actually healthy for you to drink? That would make a killing. That could potentially compete with Coca-Cola because it's so different that there you go. You know what I mean? Like, McDonald's has been taking a beating right now. They still own the world in fast food. I mean, they own a small portion of the market, but they own a bigger portion of the market than everybody else. But things that are actually working in that arena, are the competitors are coming along with healthier food. So that's what I'm really getting at. What's your crazy idea? What's the thing that you've been thinking about doing, but you've been hesitant because you don't think that there's a market or an audience for it? Because there's 1 billion people on YouTube. Literally 1 billion. So out of 1 billion people, you can assume that there are at least 1 million people into whatever weird thing that you want to come up with. But you got to be able to reach those 1 million people. Obviously, there's some tips and tricks and things that we talk about here, but also in the academy in more detail in the ebook that I created. No matter how weird it is, there's probably at least 1 million people who are going to be interested in having that conversation with you. The goal is just creating the quality content, being consistent, and then positioning it such that those people can find it. You know what I mean? Before I started doing primarily YouTube gaming knowledge sessions to help people start gaming channels, there were people like Jacksepticeye's done videos, PewDiePie's done videos. People have done videos, but nobody had created a channel that was dedicated to gamers in that regard. With the idea that I'm trying to spread ideas, not just to make people build huge YouTube channels, but to infuse a way of thinking with like-minded people such that they will carry this message into what you are doing, that you will carry this message of positivity, this message of building something better and stronger into what you do. That was a crazy idea when I first got started. And it's, for what I do, today there's not necessarily 1 million people who are interested in that, specifically because I focused on gamers. And there's only so many gaming creators who are on YouTube. But that's what I'm getting at. Like, what is the, if you're running a Let's Play channel or you're doing reviews or you're doing commentary, what's something weird? I ask the people in my academy this. What's a weird, new, innovative idea that you have in your mind that you're passionate and inspired by enough to do week after week after week or day after day, however often you do your shows? What's something that you could do in that regard? That other people, that theoretical 1 million people out there out of 1 billion would be interested in. Like, one of the things I'd love to do with gaming is not so much playing video games and recording it, but actually going across the world and having a conversation about video game culture with people of all races, all cultures, all creeds, all belief systems, and all ages. Like, that's an idea for a show that I would love to do, because I am interested in gaming from a philosophical perspective, not just playing a game and saying, hey, this is BC the Brain Supreme here at Alloy 7, and I'm playing Grand Theft Auto 19. Today I'm shooting people in the face, gangster style. Like, that's okay. That there's a place for that. There are people who enjoy it. But, my crazy idea would be to go around the world and actually share video game culture. Like, where I'm from, there are these like sub-communities of like, there's still arcade gamers. You know what I mean? Like, things that arcades existed when I was a kid. It was something that you actually went to, or arcades for me were the place you went when your mom wanted to go to the mall. And you're like, God, I can't walk around JCPenney for 3 hours. Please just give me $5 and let me go play Street Fighter at the arcade. And there's people where I'm from where there's still a subculture of folks who are into that. I'd love to do a show where I go out and interview them. Like, what was your inspiration to start this? You run a restaurant / and I'm not talking about like Dave and Buster's. I mean, a legit restaurant and bar where old school arcade video games are the theme. You know, that stuff, that's intriguing and cool to me in ways that just playing a video game and doing commentary over it is inspiring to me. You know, doing shows like this is inspiring me, where I let you into my living room here and we just have a discussion about video games and, you know, my history as a gamer and how it led me to YouTube. You know, but also using that information to hopefully inspire you all to do something new, to do something innovative with your channels, because I think that's also a part of our vision, which is building this stronger gaming community. I think part of the growth and really growing the gaming community, not just making it stronger, but making it more formidable, like making it more well-rounded. Like there's more to us than just people who film video games and yell at the screen. And I'm not criticizing that. I think that's cool. I think it's amazing that a dude can become a millionaire by playing a video game and screaming. I think it's dope. You know, people hate on it. I don't hate on it. Like, I wouldn't want to do it. And, you know, I've seen a lot of my predictions. Kaz was actually sharing an article with me that I was kind of right that PewDiePie doesn't necessarily enjoy doing that as much as he leads on. But it's like, I think it's amazing that we live in a world where you could become a millionaire for doing something that crazy. You know, that's a blessing that there's that much resource in the world that a dude could literally make a living and support charities and help other creators just from being a guy who plays video games and yells at the screen. Like, that's cool to me. But I want it to be more than that. Like, I think there's room for that. I think it should exist for the people who enjoy it. But I think there's room at the table for more. You know, like things that would inspire me. Granted, the stuff I'm talking about would probably have a much smaller audience, but that's okay. Even like the TV shows I really love almost always have a very small audience because I'm into things that, you know, mainstream America really doesn't wrap their head, like they may not dislike it, but they're just not into it. You know, just like I'm not into, like I've said on many shows, I'm not into Game of Thrones. I get it. Like I've told people I am actually friends with a guy who grew up with the author, like he's friends with him. I forgot the author's name, but I'm friends with a guy that basically, it's an older guy, obviously, that went to high school with him and knows him and talks to him. And he tells me all these crazy stories about how the author of Game of Thrones is. But I think it's cool that it exists and that people love it. I just don't. You know what I mean? I think there's room at the table for that. So now that I've run my mouth, let's see what are people talking about here in the comments. Because my app that I'm using to stream here has stopped showing me comments, which stinks. But I always come with a backup. This is one thing you'll learn. Always be prepared for contingency, people. Always, always, always be prepared for contingency. Because you never know what's going to happen. All right? So even when you're putting your YouTube crazy idea plan together, think about what would happen if that idea fails. And what are you going to do after that? Always plan for contingency. You know, even the app is acting stupid. Oh, here we go. That's what I wanted it to do. Healthier food, a.k.a. food made from actual meat. Uh-oh. Oh, no, it's just the stream. Detonating collars for politicians. Make it happen, B. That's OSID's crazy idea. That's hilarious. Alloy soda, says the French monkey. That's probably not a bad idea. Maybe I should get on that. With that rustic taste. Rust, alloy. Bulletproof Ballers says, LOL. Carlo B says, George R.R. Martin. Yes, that's the author of Game of Thrones. So yeah, it's fun. The few times I get to see the guy I'm talking about, he'll tell me stories about being in high school with him. And he's like, yes, all of your preconceived notions about him being a curmudgeon are true. He's like, whatever stereotype is in your mind about a guy that writes, you know, fantasy Dungeons and Dragons TV shows, they're all true. And I'm just like, all right, noted. All right, am I missing any comments here, or are you guys just gainfully listening? So on that note, what are you guys' questions? What are your ideas? What are your thoughts? Or do you have a crazy idea out there that you want to try out on your YouTube channel, but you haven't yet? Afraid that nobody's going to be into it? Because the beautiful thing about YouTube is it's a continuous stream of information. If you do something that sucks and doesn't work here, a year from now, everybody is going to have forgotten about that. Everybody. everybody. Like maybe, your faithful viewers. Let me make sure the stream is like I am showing that I am still streaming, but YouTube is showing that I may not be. So allow me to refresh the page to make sure that I still am. So yeah, somebody leave me a comment. Let me make sure I'm still streaming. Everything I'm looking at says I'm still streaming, but I don't know if that's the case here on actual YouTube. Okay, based on your comments, it looks like we're still up. So anyway, what's the thing that you're looking for? You know what I mean? What are you attempting to do in the space that you think probably wouldn't work, that people wouldn't be into? Because you'd be surprised what people might be into if you just give it a shot. That's what I wanted to encourage you all with tonight, is this idea that your idea is only crazy because you haven't attempted it yet and haven't. Because when it works, nobody's going to call it crazy once it starts working. If you have a show where you make video game, like I talk about this in my ebook. I said, one of the ideas I'm surprised I don't see more of is people making a YouTube channel dedicated to showcasing them making video game jewelry and then selling the jewelry. Like, if I made jewelry, are you kidding me? Like, that's huge. I think there'd be a huge market for that. Like making like Geralt's little Witcher necklace, the necklace from Final Fantasy Crisis Core. You know what I mean? Like making necklaces out of memes from games. Like, what if I could make a necklace that was Cloud Strife's blade? You know what I mean? Like the Buster Sword. That type of stuff I think would be really cool. So I'm just throwing ideas at you guys here. Okay, Ranger says I'm still streaming. Osid says, what would you estimate the goal is on my idea? If you talking about the detonating collars? You know what's funny? Osid, you would probably get a lot of backers. There's a lot of political cynics out there. I'd probably be one of them. I'm not necessarily a cynic, like where I'm like the politicians are trying. Like I just don't care. Like I'm indifferent to politics because I think it's highly ineffective. Like I don't hate any of them or think that they're from an ancient alien race trying to destroy the earth. I'm just indifferent to it because I think it's the way politics works. It's just a highly ineffective way of getting things done. See, Ranger J says, I would imagine it depends on the platform. Oh, snap. Did Monkey ask a question about, I want to start Photoshop tutorials, but not sure of the outcome. So there are, to the French Monkey, go check out, like actually do a search for, if you haven't already, for Photoshop tutorials on YouTube. There's quite a few channels that do it, some better than others. I've learned a lot of tips from other YouTubers out there that are doing that. So what I would say to you is if you want to do Photoshop tutorials, pick something that's really hard to do in Photoshop that other people like. A lot of the tutorials I see focus on basic things. Like I think there's something to be said for like advanced Photoshop tutorials for beginners. Like you're a beginner, but I'm going to make the hard stuff easy for you. That's where I could see something, because there already exist channels that do Photoshop tutorials, but something I think could work is, here's this thing that you think is impossible, but in the next 5 to 10 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how complicated it is, I'm going to show you how it's not as hard as you think by basically tearing it apart and reverse engineering this thing that we're trying to build in Photoshop. I think that could totally work. Let's see. There's only YouTube and Vimeo as platforms. Later, Dork. Be safe out there, man. He says, I know, me too. I learned on YouTube. They aren't aliens, they're reptilians. They were here first. Yeah, that. And even if they are, I don't care. Whatever. Let them do whatever they're doing, because yours truly doesn't care about it. So yeah, that was really my spiel. What else do you guys want to talk about tonight during this hangout? I wasn't planning on streaming for 3 hours tonight. I just wanted to hang out with you guys. invite you into the living room here. You can tell the living room is actually managed by my wife because it looks nice. It doesn't look all stuffy and officey. Like she's got nice accented pictures and mirrors, and the couch is a mess because my children jump all over it all day. But, what are we going to do? Says Bulletproof Baller says, Alloy just throwing away good ideas. Carlo B says, here's my question. Do you think that making videos, gameplays of video games without commentary is smart? Well, it depends on how you define smart. You know what I mean? It could be smart. I have seen people on the internet very vocal about the fact that they hate videos with commentary on it. I think the problem, one of the problems, so that's one of the bonuses, but one of the problems or challenges with doing video with no commentary is that there's no way, YouTube works on personalities. That's really, granted, some might argue that there are channels that succeed doing no commentary, and that's true. But YouTube at its core, like the highly successful people, it thrives on personality and human interaction. So if you're not doing commentary, your audience can't really connect with you. They can connect with your gameplay. Like if people are just coming to watch the video, then sure, that's cool. But a lot of people on YouTube want to connect with the person on the other end of the camera. You know what I mean? That's why face cam started to become a thing, because people were realizing if I show myself more, the audience can better connect with who I am and want to be a part of what I'm doing because they feel a closeness with me that they don't just listening to me. The other downside is from a copyright standpoint, there are places that would argue that what you're doing doesn't constitute fair use. And so, however the copyright management evolves on YouTube, that may cause you problems in the long run. For example, Mojang with Minecraft actually would not allow you to do that. They specifically say that if you're going to make videos, we want you adding some type of content to it. Now, whether that content is, commentary, or if you produced a song and made a music video, you can argue that there's ways to do it without commentary. But I do think at some point in the future of YouTube, the conversation is going to come to a head where it's people are just showcasing our games on YouTube, and that doesn't constitute fair use. And I think the systems will evolve to kind of deal with that, where people who aren't adding some level of value to the gameplay other than just playing it are going to be harder to justify. Unless you're working with publishers who don't care and they're totally okay with it, I think that's going to become more. And that's just me talking. I don't have anything that proves that. That's just what I understand about the way copyrights are managed. I think that could potentially be a problem going forward. Let's see. Bulletproof Baller says, okay, I already read that one. Carlo B says, for the beginning of the channel, probably introduce commentary later on. Yeah, okay, then that's fine. Ranger J says, I believe that I want to create a channel focused on a game that is currently in a purchasable beta. But if something goes off kilter, I don't have a clue what the next plan would be. Okay, I could see how that would be. Like if the game doesn't ever come out, or if it ends up sucking at some point, I could see that being a challenge. Bulletproof Baller says, can you talk about partnerships? I'm lost. Make that question more specific. What about partnerships would you like me to discuss? I'm happy to discuss it. I just would like to know specifically what you're looking for. French Monkey says, Carlo, as far as I know, it's not smart since having commentary is so much enjoyable. Ray B invited us into his bubble. Sugarfoot says, I want to talk about who gave you that fade. If you did it yourself, I'm going to start hating you. Yeah, I did it. What? What's wrong with my fade, man? Why you got to hate on my fade, bro? But yes, I gave myself the fade. Sells the channel. Yeah, in most cases. I think there's certain channels that don't necessarily rely on a personality. They rely more on the subject matter at hand. But by and large, from a YouTube perspective, I think it is the personality of the creator that people are really looking for. French Monkey says, what is your thoughts on Facebook ripping out YouTube videos? I think that's just competition. I think it's good in the sense that it's showing you that they consider YouTube a viable competitor. it certainly makes what we do a little bit harder. Like I would love to embed YouTube videos in our like our private Facebook group for the Gamers Academy. It would make it a lot easier than me having to actually upload the video into Facebook, or just posting a link to a, you know, where I want somebody to go look at something that's on YouTube that's not necessarily one of my lessons, but it's, you know, a lesson or, you know, an idea or knowledge that I'm trying to pass on. It would be a lot easier if I could just embed it. So my thoughts are, it's just the way competition is going to work. Facebook wants you using Facebook's platform. And to be honest with you, promoting video on social media is not as effective as I think people think it is. There's actually, I was watching one of my coaches talk about how they did, basically one of their partners did a study on how effective it is to share your content on Twitter in terms of getting link backs and, you know, helping your SEO. And basically the study showed that for the most part, posting video